The constellation is about seeing how we connected and what we carrying maybe from family system, family of origin and generations back, and the burdens and how we may be entangled and carrying that but not knowing. And what happened is that our parents, grandparents, great-parents, generations back, that they went through a lot of trauma and they didn't talk about. And people die and people have mental illnesses, but never talk about. So that energy is somewhere there. And then it's like bringing in and talking about it, just like shifting. And the person then step more into their life more free, yeah. Family constellation came from Germany. Bert Hellinger, who used to be in South Africa, he was a priest there, and he was working with Zulu people and people there. And he was not the first thing, but he always looking the family, not just individual. And often he looked at that people who didn't have confidence or the love didn't flow through is because something happened in the past, generational ancestry, and they were not talked about, or people were carrying that being entangled or a burden that was belonging to the past, not to them. Oh, that's a really still mystery. I was a Gestalt therapist, and I went to a Gestalt conference in Sydney, and I was already family therapist at South Pacific Private here in Sydney, and there was family constellation, and I went, what's that? So I went in, and you know, we start constellation, and I have no idea about that. And a woman asked me if I would represent her, and I went, I don't know what to do. And they said, you don't need to do anything, just step in. So I step in, and 15 minutes after, I was like, my mind was blown away. It was like, that's my family, what's happening here, not her. It was like, and completely my mind was blown away. And then when we finished, I went to her and I said, I'm so sorry, I feel like I stole constellation from you. And she looked at me, she said, Maria, not at all. Everything what you were saying was so accurate. And was like, what's going on? And I knew that we are touching a different level of field, not just intellectual. And I was hooked, and I went straight away to Germany for training the next year, and every year I went for years. Any training constellation, I just went. Because I love that. I knew that there is something that we in our culture still don't see, that we are a bit too much into thinking and intellectual instead of, well, Hellinger call it spirit mind or essence self. So that's how I come across, and that's it. I just knew that we are dealing with a known field, that it's other intelligent, I call it invisible intelligence. Instead of our culture, we just know intellectually, or even the therapy, we talking, and that's also okay. However, I knew that it's another level of us being the essence, heart self or field self. So that's attracted me, and I knew it. And, yeah. Well, what they can expect, I usually say to them, just leave everything what you're waiting or expecting outside, and come with the open mind, and come in and see what comes up for you, because it is another intelligence operating. So, and sometimes then, and I get feedback that they're just blown away. Say, I have an Indian guy who came, and he said he didn't talk to his father for years, and he was doing constellation around his father. And when he came back from lunchtime, he said, you wouldn't believe it, when we were doing workshop, my father called me from India. And that was one example, and it's happening all so often, that the person who is representing, feeling, sensing something that it's he never met that person, but it's here. So it's also seeing how connected we all are in some level, but it's not easy to understand. Well, I'm doing this work of constellation the last 20 years, and hundreds and thousands of people already met. And I didn't experience, maybe one, two, that people just have a bit too much expectation, or they not open to it, that I go, well, maybe you are a bit too early, maybe you need to do some other work before. But not really. If people are ready, they are ready. I trust also that they come when they're ready. And that was true for me, and I see it again and again. It's almost like a higher intelligence tell us when it's the right time that we can let go. So, and I often said to people, don't try to expect just what you think. You know how people think, oh, if I do constellation, then this will. Something else may come up completely different, but it's exactly the right thing wherever the person is at the moment. And we discover that all the time, yeah. You don't even need to do your own constellation, okay, to benefit. And that was happened for me, the first one. I was drawn in, and it was just like I was able to see my family system in a different way. And that's why I always tell people, you don't need to do your own constellation. It may not be the right time, but you will be probably chosen to represent somebody else's, and it's just like you blown away again. You go, how can that be possible? I was only representative, and yet it will touch your family system. Yeah. When I'm doing my constellation work and really doing my work, everybody is affected. And that happens so often, what you're saying, that people go, when I went home, my mother rang me, or my sister rang me, or they have totally different relationship. Something shifted because the person was already also ready to take some responsibility and step. Yeah. You don't need anything. I often said in the workshop, I really like people who come the first time because we don't have preconceived idea what's about. Just be open and, you know, really just be open there and allowing whatever comes. So it's much better if you don't know much about, because otherwise we already have a story in our heads what's about.